Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Welcome back on a Friday night. So thank you for joining us a little bit later, especially if you're on the East Coast. You are probably ready to be done with school for the week. But one more hour and then we are there. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and we will just jump into it. All right, there we go. So today is our free response tips and tricks number 2. We're going in order of like how College Board has the questions for the test. So exactly what you'll see on the test. And our chat is open, so please post in the chat and say hello. We're going to start today with a little bit of a poll. I want to do a little bit of a temperature check and know how you are feeling so far, because we are almost done. We have one more CRAM after this, and then we have our 5-hour finale that we are going to do together. So just one more, and this is kind of one of the last AP exams if you are taking more than one. For some of you, you might have other things that you are really stressing about right now. So I want to know like how you feel about this one. And let's see, our finale is at 5 p.m. Eastern time on the 13th. So make sure you join us for that. We are going to go back over a lot of the test prep. So I know we didn't spend too much time with test prep. We mostly focused on content. And I know that those content, you can always go back and watch those again. And I recommend that you do. So go rewatch our 9 content CRAMs if you're still nervous about, different areas of the content. And too, on the website, for every unit, if you didn't attend trivia live, that's okay. You can still play those trivia games. So go back and take like the unit 8 trivia and see how well you do. And if you get them all right or most of them right, then you're probably pretty solid for unit 8. But if you feel like you missed a lot or you had no idea what those questions were about, I wrote those questions as I was like going through what's going to be on the test. So they're really, they're a good measure of like the content that you're going to see on the exam. So definitely go take those trivia quizzes and then rewatch our CRAMs based on, the ones you need to spend the most time on. And then anyways, when we do our 5 hours together, we are going to practice FRQs. So it's not just going to be you listening. I want it to be like very involved. And then we will go over like what you would have gotten on the exam based on what you said in those different FRQs, and then also multiple choice help, and then some content as well. Kind of hitting that again. But all right, let's jump into this. So awesome! I am happy to hear that some people feel like this isn't the hardest one. Published this. So someone said, or some people said that their APs are harder, and some people are saying they're so nervous they can't sleep. So somewhere in between that. I definitely feel like some of the other APs can be harder just because environmental science is so like real. You can see these things happening. You can watch documentaries about it. It's like tangible stuff. Whereas like, if you took are taking AP calculus, I love math, but you can't really necessarily watch a documentary about like calculus, maybe, but not as many. So I feel like environmental science is kind of cool in that aspect, that it's like real tangible stuff that we can see today. It kind of makes it a little bit easier to understand. All right, as always, if you put your name in the chat, we can see your name. I probably won't say it, but just in case I do, or other people can see you. But yeah, definitely say hi in the chat if you have not yet. And this is a video from our founder, Amanda. So I'm going to make sure we can hear that. I'm going to play this for you right now. It is about a competition we have going on.
What up, AP students? It's Amanda here from Fileable. We are literally giving away $100 to pay for your AP exams to like 50 different students. How do you win? Easy. You just got to post about the AP experience on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. Use the hashtags YesWeCram and with Fiveable, and tag at Think Fiveable. So one person will win every single day, and this is how you can win. It is going to be a group of students who actually judge the winner. They will pick the winners, and this is how they're going to choose. It has to capture the AP experience. Do they look at that post and think like, that's 100% what this is? Is it creative? You know, is it funny? Does it have a really awesome song in it or really good use of some sort of meme? Anything. Do we see creativity and engagement? How many likes do you have? That literally is going to help you win. The more likes, the more likely you are to win. And then finally, does it incorporate Fiveable? Is it in the caption, what you're wearing, in something that you're doing? How have you incorporated Fiveable into it? So this is how you can win. A couple of quick notes. Make sure you follow Think Fiveable so we can DM you if you've won. You can post as many times as you want. You can post today, tomorrow, every day, as many times during the day as you want, but you can only win once, so keep that in mind. And finally, some of our best social interns came from this contest last year. So if you're really awesome at social media and you're looking for an internship, show us what you've got because we want to hire you. So I can't wait to see your posts. See you on the flip side. Good luck on your exams. Talk to you later.
Awesome. So like always.
What up, AP students? Amanda here from Fiveable.
Like always, definitely follow us on our social media platforms and stay in contact with us as well as reaching out. We have so many opportunities for students while you're studying for your APs and then beyond that too as internships and as a TA or different things like that as well. So definitely stay with us. Okay, these are our upcoming streams. Again, there are the dates and times. Remember, if you ever can't make a stream, that's okay. You can always watch it as a replay. So it's always available for you. And if you are watching it as a replay, if you look underneath your screen, or sorry, underneath like the little window where are the videos occurring, there's a discussion board down there. So it says like, ask a question. And please do. Our TA is going to be answering those questions for you, after the streams go on. So if you're here live, you can always talk in the chat, but if you're watching it as a replay, definitely ask a question there if you have it, and we will get back to you. Today, we're going to be kind of going through the general information again for what are FRQs. We'll go through that quickly because we did it last time as well. Then we are going to look at FRQ Type 2, and we're actually going to have you guys practice that as well. So I'll have you try and write one out. And then we will go over what the answers would have been for that. And then we'll review the content that was covered in that question. So what background knowledge would you need to know to succeed in that? Okay, so let's start by focusing on question 2 and what it is going to be specifically asking. In question 1, that's what we did last time. It was an investigation, which is an experiment. So designing an experiment or looking at an experiment, breaking one down, something like along those lines. For the next question, this one is probably not going to have math or calculations in it. So that's kind of how it's different than question 3. So no math. You are going to analyze an environmental problem and pose a solution. And that's going to present students with an authentic environmental scenario accompanied by either a model or a visual representation or quantitative data. So let's think back to our last CRAM, quantitative data. What does that mean? And that's going to be the opposite, again, of qualitative data. So quantitative data is going to be something that includes numbers, right? So we're going to look at like a real graph of numbers or of some sort or chart, and then be able to analyze a problem. So let's jump right into it. Again, timing, we want to spend about 23 minutes on each question. You can spend more on one than the other. And you can skip to one question before another in the written exam. And I do think that on the computer exams, it's going to make you answer one and then go to the next one. So definitely don't plan on skipping around if you are taking it digitally. But on that note too, you can still spend as much time you want on like each question. So even though you can't like skip around, you could still spend half an hour on one question and then 15 minutes on the next one if that is appropriate for you, and which one you feel more comfortable with. And then as always, you can have a calculator, which you won't really need for this question, but you would for the next one. And here are our kind of keywords that you need to know as far as telling you what to do on the exam, but I'm not going to go through them now. I just want to provide them for you because I want you to feel really comfortable with these descriptors when you go into the test. So make sure you read them over and over again so that when you go into the test, you don't have to spend any time thinking like, well, what do they mean by justify? You just know that already. So definitely take a look at those. Oh, right. Let's jump into it. I have like Montana themed pictures for us today because again, that's where I am. I'm not in Yellowstone, but I'm about an hour away from Yellowstone, and these beautiful hot springs. Okay, so how we're going to do this today is if you are watching live right now, I am going to put a link in the chat for you with a live Google Doc, and I would love it if you wrote your response to the question in the Google Doc, and then we can go over it together, and I can tell you, what you would have gotten on the exam. So let me get that posted for you. And you'll see it kind of has like a line in it, so you'll just start writing underneath that line, and if you see someone else writing, just kind of go below them, and we will see if we can construct some answers here. All right, so if you are live, go ahead and open that, and you'll notice I only have a 15-minute timer. We're going to do like a speed round here instead of like a full 23 minutes that you would have, just because I don't want to spend too much time on it. I want to spend more time looking at our answers. So we know that this isn't going to be like your 100% because you're not really focusing for the whole time, but we'll give it a good go. And then if you do happen to be watching later on in the replay, scan that QR code, and it's not going to be an editable document. It will just be a Google Doc of what the prompt is. And then you can give it a try on just like a piece of paper or something, and then compare your answers to ours and see what you would have gotten as well. All right, so let's put our timer here and go ahead and get started. So if you are writing it in the doc, that is awesome. Definitely like pop down a little ways if you are putting it in. Something else you can do too is write it like on a Google Doc on your own and then copy and paste your answers in right at the end here. So whichever works best, but I'm going to go ahead and start our timer. All right, guys, look like our timer is up. I have a ton of awesome answers coming in. People are writing really great responses. So we are going to go over those a little bit now. Good job speed writing. Some people got it completely finished in 15 minutes. That gives you kind of an example of like what you're going to see on the exam. So if you can do this one in 15 minutes, and this one arguably might be like the easiest one. I don't know. Depends on what the topic is, you know, so it really switches. But structurally, this might be the easiest one just because there's no math in it. And it's not like designing an experiment or anything. So yeah, so that, let's see, let's change this here. There we go. All right, so it may have locked you out as we are going on now, but that's okay. We will look at the answers that we have so far. Okay, so let me switch this up a bit here. I'm going to switch from sharing just my, I'm going to pop back on screen here for a sec. I'm going to switch from sharing just my tab to sharing my window. And I want to do this one. Okay, let's come back up here. Perfect. You can see our slides. Excellent. Okay, so we are going to look at people's answers as we go, so that it should be all good. This is, it always starts playing the videos over. The next one. There we go. I put the questions on here too, so we can kind of talk about it as we go. So this is the first question. The graph below shows temperature anomalies from 1900s to 2016 globally in the Arctic. Refer to the graph above to answer the following questions. And then something that I saw right away before we even get down to the content of it is, let's go here. So this is our like Google Doc, and this is what the question will look like kind of structurally if you were going to look at the whole thing at once. It's just so small that you can't read it on the video. So that's why I put it in the slides. But anyways, and everyone did this in the answers, but this is really important on the exams if you didn't know this yet. But so your readers are not, they don't want you to write like an essay. They're not looking for like correct spelling or sentence structure. You're not being graded on that in any way. You're only being assessed on your ability to state the facts that they're looking for. So understanding those bolded words is really important. And definitely doing things like if it says to describe something or to choose something and describe how it does something else, you have to do both of those steps, right? So we'll kind of get into that a little bit more, but definitely structure your answer like the question. So see how it says A and then it's indented in to be I and then two I's. You want to write that in your question too. And you'll see down here, if we scroll down, that these people did that. So that is absolutely beautiful. As a reader, especially if you're writing it like by hand and you have like messy handwriting, don't make them search for your answer. You want to say, this is where the answer to that specific part of the question is. So this is beautifully done, indented beautifully, very easy to read as a grader. So we absolutely love that. So that is the first step, is to make it easy for the grader to read. And then you also like don't ramble on, just answer that specific question that's there and then that's it, because you don't want to confuse them or, you know, make them, they have to take the first, you know, answer that they come across. So if you ramble on with like a bunch of things, but the end of your rambling is your answer, you could have said like things that were incorrect or things like, you know, ahead of it. So just be very concise with what your answer to that specific portion of the question is. Okay, so refer to the graph above to answer the following questions. Based on the data in the graph, identify the change in the difference from average temperature in the Arctic between 1980 and 1960. So we got to look at our graph here where it is in the Arctic between. So we're looking at the Arctic line and where it is and how it's moved up, right? So the answer for that, let's see how we did here. this one up here. So the answer for that one is that it went up 1.5 degrees Celsius. So if you said on that first one, the temperature went up 1.5 degrees, then you are correct. So let's kind of see what some people were saying. Oops. Looks like we hit that one right on. Excellent. All right, so the next one, describe the difference in the change of temperature in the Arctic with the change of temperature. With the change in global temperatures from 2000 to 2016. So they just want to know that the temperature is increasing or warming at a faster or greater rate in the Arctic than it is globally. So you'll see that the Arctic is going up at a faster or is increasing more. So that's all they're looking for with that one. Let's keep moving right along. Okay, B, the next section down. The cause of the temperature trend seen in the map is a result of increasing concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Identify a greenhouse gas that has a global warming potential that is greater than 1. And everyone I saw here did excellent. So let's kind of look at some of those answers again. Methane. And methane on that one. Excellent. So there are 3 answers that would be acceptable, or I guess 4. So methane, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, or hydrochlorofluorocarbons would all be perfectly acceptable answers there. Identify an anthropogenic source that contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. So that's why I tried to use that word so much in all of our content CRAMs. Anthropogenic, what in the world does that mean? That just means human caused, right? So you absolutely have to know what that word means moving forward because you're going to see it on the exam and otherwise you would be very confused. So what is a human-caused source that contributes to greenhouse gas emissions? So that's B2 as a grader. I'm flying through these. And I'm looking for B2, burning fossil fuels. Yep, absolutely. Some other examples that we could have gone with that one would be burning fossil fuels, deforestation, livestock, waste management, and use of CFCs, use of fertilizer. So those are all different ways that humans have increased gas emissions. But you would only have to list one, right? Because it just says to just do one there. So explain how increasing amounts of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are linked to a change in the pH of the ocean. Remember, we talked about this one. How pH, what does that mean? That is how we measure acidity. I'm having trouble talking tonight. The acid level of ocean water is measured in pH. So a good explanation for that. Again, it's going to be something fairly simple. Don't get too complicated on that one. Just state the facts and what's happening. So an increased global temperature leads to the increased ocean acidification due to the fact that there is more CO2, and that CO2 is absorbed by the ocean water. Absorbing CO2 causes the pH of the ocean water to decrease. And the most important things there are your, use of words like it's causing the pH of the ocean water to decrease. You need to mention that it's increased CO2 in the atmosphere that's causing that, but you don't need to include any of those crazy calculations. So that was B3. Warming, greenhouse gas emissions. So this one, we would definitely, instead of greenhouse gas, let's replace that with CO2. You're not wrong, but I'm not sure it's specific enough to get the the point on that one. So same thing. So I'm glad we went over this one. Definitely we all said greenhouse gases. Global warming. There we go. We got a carbon dioxide on this one. Was it on that one? I missed it. Not on that one. Okay, so definitely want to make sure carbon dioxide is what causes ocean acidification. So let's make sure that we mention that there. We are doing awesome. Make sure I don't have anything in the comments so far. All right, looks good. Let's keep going. C, greenhouse gases can pose threats to both human health and the environment. And again, I want to apologize too if I'm reading your response and I misinterpret it. I'm reading them like as I'm talking, so I'm going really fast. And obviously, a grader would be like concentrating on your answer. So I apologize if I misinterpret something you tried to say when I look at it really quickly right now. But okay, greenhouse gases can pose threats to both human health and the environment. So C1 is describe two impacts. So two, make sure you guys do two separate things here. Impacts that global climate change can have on human health specifically. There's a lot of different things that we can pick out for this one. So C2 here, or C1. Climate change can increase the spread of diseases. So a lot of diseases are spread by mosquitoes that live in warm weather. Let's see what other answers. Extreme hot or cold can cause sickness from exposure. Chronic health conditions. Air quality can decrease. And food security as well. If you, it turns into a desert where you are, then you can't grow things anymore. So we see air quality here and lower water quality from waterborne illnesses. Beautiful answer. Excellent. Extreme weather events and respiratory problems. Excellent. Those are great answers. Okay, describe one effect global climate change can have on marine organisms. So I tried to give you some examples of this one specifically as well. Marine, again, means the ocean. Marine water is any water that is salty. So don't reference something in a lake or in a river for this one. It has to be something in the ocean. Some good answers would be loss of habitat. It can alter the metabolic rate. A lot of those creatures rely on the temperature of the water. They're endothermic. Man, I'm going to say the wrong thing. They are cold-blooded is the easier term for that. So they need the environment to change the temperature of their bodies. It can alter their reproductive habits or their reproductive ability in the case of sea turtles, remember? It can cause coral bleaching with the loss of algae within those corals. And it might cause organisms to migrate to a new area that better suits them. So those are all possible examples. That was C2. Might not want to say pH level just because we're looking at specific change in temperature here for this question. I don't know. That's a close global climate change. It wants to know temperature, even though I would argue that would be an acceptable answer to reference that again, but it wants to know specifically how does temperature affect these organisms. So coral bleaching is going to be a really great for that one. And coral bleaching for that too. Awesome. Okay, so in order to reduce the effect of greenhouse gases on ecosystem, greenhouse gas emissions must be reduced. So propose one realistic solution to greenhouse gas emissions. All right, so what can we do in order to bring down our greenhouse gases? So again, we got to think back to what did you say were like ways that we're making greenhouse gases? How can we stop that? We can use more energy efficient vehicles. We can decrease the electricity amount that we use. We can use less like heat and air conditioning if we have homes that are more efficient. Switching from fossil fuels in general. Reducing meat consumption would be another really good one, and decreasing the use of like fertilizers, more eco-friendly farming would all be really good examples of that one. All right, and finally, justify how the solution posed in number 1 would lead to a decrease in greenhouse gases. So this, I love that we're looking at this question because this is so important. If you said, if you said, let's stop driving cars as far, or let's use more electric vehicles. And then for justify, you said it would reduce the total amount of methane. Obviously that's going to be wrong because cars don't really produce methane. So you just have to make sure that your two answers here like make sense and go together. So if you said reduce eating meat, how is that going to specifically bring down greenhouse gases? And so you would need to say that it would that would reduce the total amount of methane, right? So if you had said, let's drive electric vehicles, then you can say the total amount of fossil fuels, specifically petroleum, that needs to be burned would decrease. So make sure that your two answers there are linked. Let's take a look. That was that D? Sorry, forgot. Yeah, D. D1 and 2. So let's find one that got time to answer that one. Reducing greenhouse gas emission, rely on non-renewable, switch to renewable sources. Awesome. And that's a pretty straightforward answer. So using renewable sources are going to decrease the amount of fossil fuels that would need to be used. And that is going to overall decrease our greenhouse gases. You might want to say on that one, by burning less greenhouse gases, we are going to have less emissions overall. So you're going to have less, the less greenhouse gases we burn, the less CO2 that's going to be in the atmosphere. So specifically saying like that switching from fossil fuels is going to allow us to have less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as car exhaust, like be really specific. You don't want to just say it's going to be less greenhouse gases, but like how, right? So by burning less fossil fuels, we will be releasing less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So very specific. Like I know you know that, but do they know you know that? You have to say exactly what you mean in order to get those points there. So again, like if you said, let's eat less meat, you could then say eating less meat or having less cows be farmed would reduce the total amount of cows on the planet, and then there would be less methane produced as a byproduct of those cows eating grass with their like intestinal system. So again, you could use the word fart, I guess. So you could say cows pass a lot of gas, a lot of methane, and by having less cows on the planet, that would be a lot less methane produced. So just be really specific of what gas you're talking about and where it's coming from to get full points on that. All right, and there's my moose. Moose are my favorite animals. They do live in Montana, but I've never seen one. But to be honest, I'm kind of afraid to go hiking because there's huge bears in Montana, and I don't want to see one of those. All right, so let's keep our Montana theme going. I put all of the content slides from our previous streams in here so that, oh, I'm sorry about that. One second. I put those all in here so that you can review all of this material. Anything that I like didn't specifically go over as we were running through some of those answers. And by the way, those answers were awesome. You guys like really hit it. Just a little bit of tweaking as far as making sure you're really clear and letting us know that you know this stuff. You've got it, right? You're very, very close. So again, these are our global warming potentials. These are the major sources of these greenhouse gases and their overall concentration. You don't need to memorize those concentration amounts. Like that's too specific. But what you do need to know is in general, what are there more of, right? There's like vastly more carbon dioxide than there is chlorofluorocarbons, but chlorofluorocarbons have a much, much higher global warming potential. And so reducing them even in a small amount would make a big impact. So just kind of knowing those ratios more than anything. The only, like the global warming potential, you might need to know that methane is 25 times stronger than carbon dioxide, but that one's pretty easy to remember, right? So I wouldn't remember that one, but the rest of them, you don't need to know those numbers as far as memorizing it, just the general ratios. Okay, consequences of global warming. And this one, it didn't specifically ask this. It wanted to know human health consequences of global warming. which is kind of an interesting thing because it's kind of like because of these things. So you could say, human health would be negatively affected by large storm events going on. But these are more like global impacts of climate change. So rising sea levels, melting the permafrost, and again, these feedback loops, positive feedback loop, that's like a big topic that often comes up. So definitely know these two things as positive feedback loops for climate change, because you might see that in an FRQ and you might see it in a multiple choice question. So again, a positive feedback loop is like when something makes something else happen more, that then makes that happen more and happen more and happen more. So it kind of sets off a chain reaction that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes. Kind of think of, have you ever seen like someone knock over a domino set that starts with like a small dominoes and then gets bigger and bigger and bigger? And so you only pushed the little tiny dominoes over, but then with that same amount of energy, it continued to make a bigger and bigger effect, kind of. So yeah, melting permafrost and melting sea ice. If we cause those things to happen, it's going to make climate change happen even faster because we're going to lose the reflective property of sea ice. Remember, white things reflect light. And then melting permafrost releases methane, which then we know is 25 times stronger as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And it's going to just make climate change happen even faster. So again, yeah, and then like large storms are going to happen because of changing ocean currents because of that melting sea ice. All right, let's keep moving. We got 10 minutes left here. And then a consequence in marine habitats, and a lot of you hit that one right on. So coral bleaching is caused by the change in temperature. It is not caused by the change in ocean acidity, which is interesting because you think like bleach and acid and all of that, but it's not. It's the temperature. So the hot water causes the algae to die and the coral appears white because you can just see its skeleton. And then it can die as well after that. Loss of habitats for temperature sensitive animals and causing those species to relocate. Again, we kind of already talked about that as well. And then the final one here is ocean acidification. I do have the equation there just for you to see it. But this question was a really good example of the fact that like you don't really need to memorize that equation. What you need to understand is that the increasing hydrogens that are freed, I guess, in the ocean when CO2 bonds with water is what causes the pH to decrease and then become more acidic. And I think the hardest part of that is getting your decreases and increases correctly in how you state it. And then if that question had asked us like, what effect does that have on marine organisms? Then you could say organisms that calcify their bodies are unable to grow in the way that they normally would because their bodies dissolve. The calcium is broken down by the acid, and so they become very weak, and they might not be able to survive at all because they cannot form their calcified bodies. All right, kind of flew through that. We have one more CRAM left, and we are going to go through that last one with equations and what equations you would need to know, as well as kind of calculating that one out. So we do have one more left. Let's see. I'm going to post one more poll for us here before we go. And I want to know, what area are you the most confident in out of these options? Let's see if it'll let me show it here. There we go. What area do you have the most confidence? Is it in your content knowledge of environmental science? It is in your math skills of the equations we might see, or the memorizing of the equations that you will need to know? give it just another second there. But thank you again for everyone who worked on that live with us. That was really fun. I think we'll do it again next time. So be prepared for that we will write another one next time so you can see kind of self-grade and see what you would have gotten, as well as I will do some live really quick critiques. And I want to go back. I'm also, so I will post that the uneditable document ahead of time like I did on this one. So it'll be in the discussion thread. So if you want to check, I'll get it done in the next few days here. So if you want to go ahead and check our next CRAM, I'll put the question up, and that way if like you don't do so good under pressure or under our 15-minute super fast time, I'll put it up early so you can write out like your best possible response and then just copy paste it in there when we're live. But again, I'm going to back us up here. One more time, if you wanted to scan that QR code and get the document, you can. If you want to practice writing this again on your own. And okay, so as we are coming to an end here, please join us in Discord with Miriam. She is there to answer any of your questions or anything that came up during this CRAM. Definitely feel free to share if there's something you want to see in our last one together, or if there's something you want to see in the finale. If you want us to cover something, we're definitely going to cover more multiple choice there. So like, I know that we haven't even touched that yet. So we're going to touch that and go over that in the CRAM, as well as more FRQs. It's going to be a lot like this, where I give you some time to work on something and we go over it. And again, I would go back and watch those other content CRAMs before we do the finale together so that you're really solid on those things. All right. It looks like, I know you guys are watching, but we got some, I can show our answers. Looks like we might not, let's see, I'm not sure where that one went. Well, it says, so far, the areas that we are showing them the most confidence is in our content knowledge, and we would need some support in our math skills and equations, and we will definitely do that next time when I see you next. So again, please join Miriam in our Discord channel, and I will see you guys soon. All right, have a good night.